about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist. Am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
That was great sounds of Watson with Outside on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. EZ BlueZ. Easy BlueZ, you're always better at introductions more than me. Who do we have with us as a guest on this program today? Go right ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand something. When you have someone who is so intuitive and so into the actual fabric of your community, it is one of the most blessed things possible. When you have someone who's willing to show you the future by reaching into the past, it's a glorious thing. When you have someone to highlight just the potential in which we all can go to and truly rise to and truly feel, that is the most glorious thing. So I want you to put your hands together, not if you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2 because we don't need any accidents. But mentally, I want you to put your hands together for the fantastic, the amazing, the supercalifragilisticexpialidocious IfeMichelle Gardin is in the building. Welcome, benvenue.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's good to see your smile. That's the most important thing. That's why I try to do these intros as over the top as possible, because it's a matter of showing you how much flowers we want to give you to have you on the show. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it.
Oh, we really do. Thank you. Let's just start off. It may be real generic, but what made art your passion? Like, what started all this? Did it start as a child? Did it start in college? Like, what made you just want to just give back to your community and give back so much throughout all these years?
Well, it's always been an integral part of my life, I guess. I was always a reader. I had two aunts, and my maternal grandmother were teachers, and they were educators and very much into reading. So I always had books to read as an escape. I was the only girl. I had two younger brothers. So I get away from my brother's noise and go in my room and read. So reading has always been a thing. And then as far as the arts, born and raised in New Haven, I attended Bowen Peters School of Dance back in the day.
Okay.
I was born in 59, so I had a lot of it was an evolution of a lot of things. So yeah, I went to dance school. Our dance teacher, Mrs. Peters, showed us not just to dance, but the origin of the dance, the things, how it came. And I was always curious about that. I spent a lot of time. I grew up with the old Stetson Library.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
On Dixell Avenue. And it used to be on the corner of Hazel and Dixwell. I think it's Hazel and Dixwell. Before they, in the 70s, they built Dixwell Plaza.
Right.
And then it was in Dixwell Plaza. So my love for the arts has always been there. I used to be a kid that always, like, when I went downtown, would just go romping through the museum, the Yale Art Gallery, the British Museum, before a lot of people of color went through it.
That's true.
So also being a child of the 60s and that evolution. My uncle, Eugene Huckabee, had a store called Unique Boutique on the corner of Dixwell and Henry for a long time. And he actually would have went to Pear Art School when he was young, but he had to work because he had family and stuff. So he went to the post office and he opened this store called Unique Boutique, which was the first Black beauty supply store in New Haven.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was on the corner of Dixwell and Henry for a long time, and then he had a store downtown as well. So I worked with him from when I can remember, I think from the time I was 12 to whenever, off and on throughout my life till he retired at the store. I was surrounded by color, by jewelry, posters. We used to have those velvet posters.
Oh, those are my favorite.
Glow in the
Especially
dark
the velvet
posters,
black light posters. Oh,
the
so
black
good.
light posters, the black
Mhm.
lights, the
Now we talking.
disco
Yeah.
light. I mean, I came up in the disco era.
Right.
Like, I can't remember when there wasn't I was always part of, integral art and culture was always it. I danced,
Right.
even when I went to college, I was in the
Mhm.
dance company at Morgan State University.
Mm.
Yeah, it was just like everything. I wanted to take it all in. So, and that goes to my name. Ife is a name that my birth name is Michelle.
Mhm.
Mhm.
My daughter's just turned 35, so when I was thinking of names for her 36 years ago, I came across the name Ife,
Mhm.
and it's in several West African dialects, and in particularly in Nigeria in the Yoruba dialect, it means love of creativity, love of culture. And in every dialect that it was in each country, in Senegal, Benin, it was spelled different ways, but it always meant love of something.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I like the fact that the Ile Ife in Nigeria is the center of cultural history
Right.
and
That's
art.
beautiful.
So then I became IfeMichelle.
Mm.
That's how I wanted to live my life.
That's awesome.
Easy. I think that's the best origin story I've heard on this program.
No, it really is. Well, the thing is it's so cool because it's a consistency. There's one thing that I have to say is art has been consistent in your life and in those different aspects, and it's something that you really see a lot of in New Haven because New Haven has such a thriving art scene that not a lot of people really know about or give credit to.
Mhm.
That is there, and of course it's because we have the museums and we have all these other things that are there. We have some incredible art schools. We have some incredible music schools and those different things. But what I really love about the story is how personal it is.
Mhm.
How the fact that it's because of the uncle, because of the family, because getting into the dance class at a young age and growing through the art itself, where it has become such a part of your person that it became part of your name. I mean, that is such a beautiful story. I think that's awesome. So I want to thank you for sharing that and being as open as possible with that. Now, as you did progress in those different type of things, how were you able to manage being an artist and living in the world of massive capitalism?
Oh, wow.
Oh
So
yeah, no, we asking the hard questions.
writing, like, because I always wrote too, like,
Mhm.
Oh,
and
awesome.
hence the reason I started Lit Fest was because I had to move back to New Haven. But, I mean, I worked a lot of jobs. After college, I worked on Wall Street, actually.
Hmm.
I worked at a bank called Manufacturers Hanover.
Okay.
It had the first ATM.
Yes.
I worked at the bank when people got paid on Thursday and Friday, and bank was closed on Saturday.
Mm.
So yeah, so everybody had to go cash their check,
Yep. Yep.
physical check from their supervisor, the accountant, or whoever, and had to cash their check, and then an ATM came out.
Right.
Am I freezing? Oh gosh.
No, you're good.
No, you're
Okay.
good. No, you're fine.
Um, and so yeah, so I worked for the bank.
Hmm.
And then one of my customers who became a good friend worked on Wall Street because I worked at the bank on Wall Street.
Okay.
Mhm.
Like I remember the first ribbon cutting it was a big deal to have the ATM.
Of course, yeah. No, it makes sense because it at that point in time it was such a leap forward in in technology and in culture that it would be a huge ribbon cutting service and everything. So that's so
Yeah,
cool. I mean,
yeah,
we
and
see it now, and then ATMs are in every bodega and street shop that's out there. But really, when it first came down and how difficult, I remember my mom and my grandpa going and getting on Friday going and having to wait in line at the bank and get the check cashed. And there'd be 10 to 20 people deep online, no matter what time you went there.
It's true.
And they always had the best candy.
Yep.
I remember the machine. You put 10 cents in the machine, and you wind up getting a gumball that you could chew for about 4 hours. It lost flavor in 20 minutes, but you could chew it for 4 hours.
Yeah.
I remember these things.
Yeah, so that, and then one of my a customer that was at the bank, I used to tease him. I was a head teller, so I had to fill up the ATM machine.
Oh no!
To fill it up, and then on Monday, like people would like get cash for the whole weekend. Like if you wanted to go out to dinner, go party, go to brunch, do whatever you had to do, grocery shopping, you needed that cash.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of my customers worked at he was working at one of this on Wall Street somewhere, and he went out after work with him and met a lady that went to school with him that worked at Essence magazine, and she needed an assistant. I was bored with the bank. I was living in New York too. I was living in Harlem. Loved it. It was pre-gentrified Harlem, so it was very raw and black and cultural there. And that's really why I chose Harlem, because in the time that I was growing up and lived with and worked for my uncle, on Sunday, his store was open Monday through Saturday. So Sunday morning, I would take a ride with him down to New York to get supplies for the store.
Awesome.
And so we go all through the beauty district and everything, and then he would either take me to a show because he knew I liked going to shows, or we go out to dinner and we go to Harlem. And so I was like, I gotta be here. And plus, in my reading in life, I discovered the Harlem Renaissance writers. So Harlem was like this whole vibe to me.
It was a great vibe. Yeah.
Yep.
Like it was like I'm thinking of Langston Hughes and County and Zora Neale Hurston's Harlem, right? So there was always that my romance thing.
Right.
So anyway, flash forward, I moved to Harlem. I'm all in, and it was very it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't gentrified. I kick myself right now because if I was my 23-year-old self, and New York was giving away those brownstones for $1 and giving you $100,000 loan to renovate it, I would have bought it.
Word.
But I wasn't thinking then.
No one was thinking then. Don't worry about it.
You are
It was
okay.
the 70s, and believe me, I was also in the culture of.
Yeah, I got you.
I was in that, there was disco culture. So it was like, when I see shows like Pose, and there's that underground gay culture, I saw my friends. I was in it. It was in it. So anyway, my friend knew this woman that worked at Essence, and we just happened to be in the happy hour. And she said, I need an assistant. I had to find my assistant today, blah, blah. And he said, well, this is my friend Michelle. She's the bank manager. I mean, head teller at the bank, and she's looking for something else to do. She was like, okay, you can start Monday. So I started working at Essence magazine.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I became a assistant in publicity. The woman's name was Terry Williams.
Okay.
So yes, I worked there for a while, and then experienced a lot of different things about a lot of famous people at the time. And yeah, I kind of hopped around a lot because I went from Essence for about 2 years, and I was working for Devil Wears Prada.
Oh wow!
No disrespect to the lady, but she got the work done.
It's just like the movie.
She got the work done, but it was intense.
Right, and during this time, I would volunteer for a lot of local arts organizations in my neighborhood. So I volunteered at theater company and theater companies, dance companies. Like if anybody needed somebody to sit at the desk and do stuff. So then I transitioned to the Harlem Cultural Council and was an office manager there. Yeah, I always did something that was moving in that.
Yeah, you seem to always be moving in that vein and thing. Even working at the bank, and like I said, being there for the ATM and all that, you're at the forefront of culture. Going to Harlem in the 70s, where it's in this beautiful rebuild aspect of it, and you're checking out all the like you said, the Renaissance writers and all that, and all the magic from there. I mean, I gotta say, one of my favorite movies is Harlem Nights, just because how outlandish and incredible it is. But people don't really seem to understand that there were these pockets of just pure culture and glory that were in these individual places, whether it be Atlanta or Harlem or even, to a point, New Haven. And I think New Haven's, hitting a new stride in that type of aspect. And that's what we're hoping for, is we get to see this gloriousness kind of rise up. What has it been like to be in so many ebbs and flow of culture?
Wow. So it's like a natural, I don't like when I back and forth in to New York, and my life is crazy. So there was a point where I had to move back here. I was struggling with something. And I had to move back here to New Haven.
Right.
And I started working for um an organization called oh my God. It was the arts organization. They used to send artists into schools.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I'll think of it in a minute. But then they became a creative arts program in the school system.
Okay.
So I went from working for the organization to the school system and going into schools doing, because I was a writer, right? My goal was writing. So I was in the schools. I was at co-op for a while.
Okay.
Teaching creative writing. I worked wow. When I tell people I worked for almost every arts organization in New Haven.
Ooh,
I worked
okay.
at, yeah, because I did I was the first before the Schubert Theater became a part of a national organization, Catholic,
Okay.
and they were independent Schubert.
Right.
Um, and Lorraine Hansberry, who's one of my favorite writers, who wrote Raisin in the Sun,
Oh,
and To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. Um, Actually, Raisin in the Sun premiered at the Schubert Theater before it went on Broadway, right? As like the
Wow.
Schubert Theater in New Haven was that historical place where people, because it was named after the Schuberts of Broadway,
Right.
right? And so they would test the shows in New Haven at the Schubert Theater,
wow.
and they would keep them in the Taft Hotel because the Taft building was a hotel.
Right.
And I was reading her autobiography, and it was something about she was writing a letter from the Taft Hotel to her husband or something. But anyway, worked at the Schubert. I was so happy. They needed a community liaison.
Oh, that's awesome. That is one of my favorite jobs. I love that.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll do this. And so, yeah, became that, did that for like 2 years. From there, I went to the Arts Council, worked for Bitsy Clark at the Arts Council, again as a community liaison.
Of course.
So I was always trying to get people in the community that I grew up in.
Right.
Because I grew up, and also church. Like church was an integral part. I grew up in an Emmanuel Baptist church under Reverend and Mrs. Cofield, and it was lively. Church was a whole thing. And I
There's a whole process on Sundays.
oh man, and then my paternal grandmother, her name was Hattie Turner. She went to Bethel, so sometimes I went to Bethel Church, and then I also attended St. Luke's Church. So it was three different. It was a Baptist church, an AME church, and St. Luke's is Episcopal. So it was like three kinds of things.
Right.
They helped. I mean, I want to say What I evolved to now is a combination of my childhood.
Okay.
There was also integration
Hmm.
of schools in New Haven
Right.
when I was in elementary school. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but there's a whole lot of stuff
You
coming
want to
up.
know
No,
something? You're answering the
you're
question
dropping
perfectly
some
fine. You want
gems.
to know
You're
something?
dropping some gems, and it's nice.
I love
We're
this
not
answer,
complaining.
whether it's the right
Yeah.
answer or not. It doesn't matter. I love the answer.
We're learning,
Um,
so this
so
is
there
great.
was school in there was coming up in the 60s, it was integration in schools, right?
Mhm.
They had it was called Project Concern, who you
Mm.
could talk about. So instead of putting money into schools that needed help, they wanted to bust kids out.
Right.
So one of my brothers and I went to a Catholic school
Hmm.
that was on Audubon and State Street. The church is still there.
Right.
The rest of the part is very nice apartments, but there was a school back there called St. Boniface, and
Mm.
they accepted one black child in each grade.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, why do I have to do this? I still want to go to, because at the time I was at Baldwin School, and I was
Right.
and Baldwin School is actually was on Henry Street across from Next Haven. It's also housing now.
Right.
And I was like, why? I didn't know. My mother's like, you're smart. You're gonna go. This is an opportunity. And in the meantime, there's I have an uncle that's running a United Newhallville organization, which was a neighborhood organization where the Black Panthers in New Haven had a breakfast
Mhm.
program. So sometimes we would have breakfast there. I have two
And
grandma.
sometimes I just don't want to forget the tag WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Ife, my apologies. Go right ahead.
Okay. Um, and so I I'm used to being between growing up in Dixville and Newhallville, up and
Mhm.
Right.
down Dixville Avenue, pretty much in Shelton and Winchester, and being very familiar with that. My grandfather migrated up here from Georgia,
Okay.
Macon, Georgia, to work at Winchester because it was World War One. All the white men went to war. They
Mm-hmm.
like, we need some black men, and everybody heard about the jobs.
Right.
That's how my family ended up here, right? So so what was I saying? I was doing I work for everybody. I work for
Yeah.
everybody. It
You,
was a whole
you,
lot. It was a whole lot, but I worked for everybody. I worked
right.
at Schubert. I worked for the Arts Council.
Mhm.
The first years of Arts and Ideas.
Mm.
The first 3 years of Arts and Ideas, I worked in different capacities for them. Um, in the Long Wharf Theater. I did a whole bunch of
Woo.
stuff.
Wow. Wow. Well,
I
it's so interesting because again, you're sitting at the forefront of culture. Like, you were talking about how the Schubert initially was like a starting point before it almost like a dress rehearsal before they went live on Broadway. They tested it. We hear that the test audiences, in TV all the time. Oh, this tested really well upon this demographic and this demographic, and that's fantastic. But to actually see it happen in real time, you
Yeah, I don't
know,
think a lot of people realize that.
no, no, not at
Like
all. I had no idea.
there's so much to the history of New Haven. I mean, it was also a time where Dixville Avenue was, had the Cardinals. I mean, not the Cardinals. It was called the Soundtrack.
Hmm.
A place called the
soundtrack.
Soundtrack, Monterey.
Right.
Wow.
Um, so like during people talk about like the Freddie Fixer Parade made a
Hmm.
wonderful comeback a few years ago,
Mhm.
and um, in my time, I remember that
Hmm.
like they used to have a gold and a silver lady on the float. They, all these things I think contributed to um what my life, Black Expo at the New Haven at the Armory on Gulf Street,
Hmm.
um unity in the community, in the park used to be a big deal every summer.
Mm.
Like and I tell people all the time, like growing up in Dixville, Newhartville, you never had to go downtown. We went downtown; it was a big deal to go downtown, go to Macy's or Mally's to shop. But for the most part, We just
Macy's
stayed
and
in our neighborhood.
Rallies,
Doctors were there. You know,
yo. You brought me
You took him
so
all the way back.
My inner child's yelling, "Oh my God, running through the mall." I'm sorry.
yeah,
That's
in the
crazy.
mall that was like major because you had to
Yeah.
go
Now it's
over.
apartments.
It
Oh my God.
was a big deal.
Yeah, it was. Oh, you brought me back. Oh my God.
But y'all are probably not my age, but
No, no, no.
some
I'm
things.
in, I'm in my 30s, but like New Haven downtown's changed so much. It's crazy. Like
The
20
mall
years.
was the mall. It wasn't.
Yeah. It I just managed running around through there. I was a little kid, and now I went into well the old school mall now, and the layout's still the same like it was in the late '90s, early thousands. It's just the different stores now are just apartments. They just remodeled it so differently. So like when you walk in, it's surreal.
Mhm.
It's really
And
surreal.
throughout everything, I always went to
Mm.
dance performances, theater performances.
Mhm.
I always took less had writing workshops, did stuff like that, and
Yeah.
back and forth to New York. So I was always kind of back and forth
Hmm.
until like I settled. Well, I moved back here again in 1989, 88, late 88 to 90, and I had my daughter, and
Okay.
so that's when I started doing more in New Haven, doing the New Haven stuff,
Right.
creative writing at co-op and arts and ideas and Schubert. Um, it was fun. It was a journey. It was a
Well,
journey.
I absolutely. Everyone who has ever listened to the show knows how much I love co-op. I have my twins are in co-op right now, just knocking it out of the park, and I love them being able to walk downtown and being on Tuesdays and Thursdays. One of my guys goes to musical intervention for a songwriting workshop and an open mic. And my other guy just actually wrapped up Tech Week. And wrapped up doing the sound and stuff for Into the Woods this year's
Oh
production of
yeah,
Into the
that should
Woods.
be. Did it start yet?
Yeah, it's already done.
Oh man,
I'm sorry.
I usually try to make their. No, I try to make their
Right.
stuff.
But so I love co-op. So anyone who's ever connected to co-op, I just want to thank you for continuing to put those dreams and stuff out there, because my kids are growing through them, and I love that. Like my heart is smiling right now, just so you know.
I have some students that are probably in their 40s now that they come up to me, Miss Ife. I was like, who are you? And they're like, you remember me from co-op. I also worked in social services
Okay.
in
Okay.
Haven. So I worked for AIDS Interfaith Network, which was also Mrs. Cofield's.
Hmm.
There used to be AIDS Project New Haven and AIDS Interfaith Network.
Hmm.
And Mrs. Cofield ran, so I was a day program supervisor, so helping people. I worked at I ran a summer youth program before New Haven had their summer youth at work program. Community Action Agency used to run a program called Manage Your Future, and we had about 300 to 400 young people that we hired and placed all over the city. Um, and I
Wow.
worked for Youth Continuum for a while
Oh,
as well,
cool.
helping young people with their skills. So there's always been an integration of
Hmm.
my serving my community as well as um, the arts,
Hmm.
integrating the arts. And I have to shout out to both of my grandmothers, as I always do, Annie Huckabee and Hattie Turner, who were community activists when I was growing up.
Right.
Um, a part of the New Haven Board of Education in the 50s, 60s. I have a picture of my mother and her brother, two of her brothers and her cousin, because my grandmother at Winchester School. So Winchester Factory started Winchester School so that the kids that lived in the
Right.
public housing
Hmm.
could have a school to go to, and their daddy and mommies could go to work.
Right.
Because Winchester used to have a a horn during a shift. They used to ring a bell during each shift change.
Right.
So growing up, we hearing toot. That was a shift change.
Wow.
You see it coming and going. So the Newhall, they would be between Newhallville and the public housing. But anyway, my grandmother started the first hot lunch program based on what they were doing the Black Panthers were already doing.
Right.
Um, and yeah, so she was an integral part of starting that in New Haven. So I appreciate what I had growing up. My aunt Elnora Best was like one of the first Black businesswomen in the city. She was a milliner. She sewed everything from lampshades to ball gowns.
Wow.
He was a hustler. Okay.
And she had an etiquette school. She has a stone, or had a stone down in the square in the 9 squares downtown.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. But somehow her stone got damaged, so we have to replace that. But
Oh no.
yeah, so and my grandmother and her sisters used to have these tea parties, right? And my grandparents had 9 kids. I'm the oldest of 32 grandchildren. So I was my grandmother's sous chef with holiday gatherings. She liked decorating. It and dressing up and all that kind of stuff. So there was always a standard. So I think I contribute that to some of my arts. I used to sit around with her and her sisters-in-laws and friends, did a quilting circle. And I regret that as a child, I was like, this is labor. Cut the pieces. No, cut it like this. No, do this. Or pin the pieces together for them, pick up the pins off the floor, things like that. There's a whole, what is it? Just coming together, mixing of all the things that have a love for arts and culture.
No, that's one of the most beautiful stories when it really comes down to it. And I love how you not only have spent time in arts, but also spent time in the community building and different aspects there. How, as we enter these times that we're entering, and as terrifying as these times can be, can you please highlight how important community activism is today?
Oh, it's I think we need to learn lessons. People are resilient, right? There have been presidents prior to this time where we have so much overload of social media, right? Like Woodrow Wilson, like other, as I like historical fiction.
Perfect.
But and through historical fiction, you learn things that happen, right? In even during Harlem Renaissance. There were times where people were restricted by so many things. And the power of them coming together was important. So I think that this is a time for people to be activated. All right. If you saying it, you just got to start doing it. You got to start just doing what you can do with your capacity to do. And organizing had become, a lot of organizing had become performative.
Yes. Yes, it had.
I remember when there were the trials, the Panther trials in the Yale African American Cultural Center was born out of those trials, and the Black students that were at Yale organizing protests with community of New Haven. So the green was full of people of all colors protesting in front of the courthouse, right? Against that. Like, there was no social media. There was flyers and phone calls.
Flyers, phone calls, and door knocks.
It was a different time. That's right.
Right. There were secret meetings. Because again, both of my grandmothers in their community activism supported the Panthers. They had meetings or attended meetings, or they were opened their homes to people to have meetings, and me as a child sitting there listening, being because you had to, can't be like these kids now. Like we got open parenting now. It wasn't no open parenting. Sit over there, shut up.
Yeah, that's how I grew up as well.
Same.
Just, don't talk about grown up, stay out of grown folks' business, all that. No, now we have open parenting.
Mhm.
But yeah, so there was a time when we organized and we got things done. People got things done collectively. And there were white people who were empathetic and down for the cause, right? And infiltrated and like the duality, this can happen, do this, do that, that mobilized and made people stronger.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is, like, as much as there was segregation, they wanted, like the greater powers that be wanted segregation, yet when people were segregated and started their own towns, started building their own businesses aside from that, they blew that up.
Yep.
So make up your mind what you want. You want our money, but you don't want me to put it in your hand. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean your house during the day, and when you pay me my paycheck, I'm gonna go to the grocery store of the man that has the farm near where I live, because I don't live where you live.
Right.
I'm gonna do this over here because you're not gonna give me the best.
Right.
Right. So I also was fortunate enough to my maternal grandmother Annie grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I would listen to her stories as the oldest grandchild when her and her they sitting around quilting, talking about the stories from when they were young and growing up in segregation, right? So listening to them saying, like, the railroad tracks that separated the town, they going down the railroad tracks, and the white kids making fun of them and their tattered dresses and all that. And there was like my grandmother and about 6 other people, maybe 6, 7 of them, and these 2 white girls were taunting them and about their clothes, and so, because they sewed everything, like they could all sew, her and all her sisters. Their grandmother, who was an ex-slave, a lot of people don't know the history of their family. I feel blessed to know this, that my grandmother's grandmother was a house slave. And emancipation came, something happened to the plantation, so she stayed in the house, but she had made the curtains. That's how they knew how to sew the curtains and everything in the house, and the quilts and the clothes and everything. And so she had her daughters, her grandchildren, and everybody move into the house. So they grew up knowing how to do those things.
Right. That's
Right?
awesome.
And so when these little white girls were taunting them, they took their dresses off. Right? And sent them home in their slips. And so each one of them took a piece of a dress and made something else with it, like made pants or made a top or made another put it in another dress. So when the people came to look for these little black girls who took the dresses from the white girls, they could not find the dress.
Right, because it didn't exist, because it no longer existed as a particular dress. It became part of different outfits for everyone else. That is
and they knew that if they just took the dress, they knew enough that if we just wear this dress, somebody gonna get it. But if we just split it up, they're not gonna say.
Right.
They can't say who has the dress.
Exactly.
Right. That's resistance. So that my grandma was born in 1915. So that probably happened sometime in the 20s. Like, people had to do what they had to do. So this is now, right?
Right.
With technology, with whatever, like, figure out, and it doesn't have to be a great movement, because I really believe there because I came up in the 60s too, and I heard these stories from my grandmother, and I remember real kind of street activism happening. And knowing some former Panthers and listening in to their stories. When I lived in New York in the 80s, there was, I don't know if you all remember, this is called the Tawana Brawley case, where this woman was found, right? And there was the December 12th coalition of people that were former Panthers.
Yeah.
And so I'm a young 20-year-old person living in New York. I joined the December 12th coalition.
Makes sense.
And we organized underground. No cell phones, no social media. It was a whole lot of flyers, a whole lot of midnight meetings, a whole lot of other ways to do stuff. So when I see the evolution of what's happened, is because social media has made everything so performative.
Yes.
Right? Show up here, yell, scream, but then people like shut down something and then go to brunch.
Right.
Like, no, after you organize people, you recruit people while you're doing that to be a part of it, and then you meet after that. It's not stop. So don't stop. I think it was a wonderful thing that we had Obama as president, and also that didn't mean stop
Right.
doing stuff. It didn't mean stop. It meant stay on it. For people, there were people of all colors that said they wasn't going to vote for Kamala, A, because she was a woman, and B, because she's black, and this. I was like, whoever is in power that you selected, I call elections selections, because you go in a booth and you make a selection.
I like that.
Right.
I like that.
It's a selection.
I like
And
that.
so you select who you want, and then they work for you.
Right.
They working for you. So
Right.
whether they know it or not, they working for us. I don't know who Elon Musk think he working for.
Well, he's not working on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. That is for damn sure. But we only have so much time left, about like 7 minutes left of the show. I just want to talk about Culturally Lit, what came to that great idea and the great progress we've seen out of that so far, and what is yet to come from that. So I just want you to go ahead with that, Ife.
Okay, so I've been back and forth to New York. So I was in New York, came back here in 2018 to care for my mom, who had dementia. So, and I was approaching my 60th birthday. I worked for Columbia when I was in New York, so the last time, and I worked at Columbia. So I didn't want to interview for a job. It's like, I'm 60, people are retiring. And like I said, always love arts and literature and reading. So I said, New Haven has a lot of things. It doesn't have a book festival.
No, it doesn't.
I said, okay, I'll start a book festival, the Elm City Lit Fest. And did that. And so it became a idea, and I knew I already had a kind of reputation, not reputation, but was familiar with some arts people in the art scene here.
Right.
Shout out to, and God rest her soul, Alita Staten. She was very much integral part of the arts here in New Haven, and she's my cousin, and we did a lot of projects together. So I just went to the Arts Council. They became my fiscal sponsor, raised some money, and did Elm City Lit Fest. The first one was in 2020. We had to be virtual, and went well. In this 2021, we was outside. And then the third year, in the first 2 years, the section that we focused on comics and comics and graphic novels was
Yeah.
big. And I was like, wait, this is a whole culture.
Yep.
And then the young people that I say young people, they in their 20s, 30s, that were on my team were like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
a whole thing, and there's not a lot of representation.
Right.
So okay, so we'll start DiasporaCon. So the third year we started DiasporaCon.
Mm-hmm.
In a conference specifically to be a conference for that highlights opportunities for people of color in
Mm.
in that industry. So
Okay.
it's a con, but it's a conference con.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, that
Come
makes
dressed
sense.
up and do the things, but we want young people and anyone else out there, entrepreneurs, to see that, these things you're making could be zines, you could sell them, you can make a cartoon, you can make animation, you could be your own superhero. That's what, and DiasporaCon came out of that. Lit Fest has a different theme every year. That's still our annual book festival.
Mm.
Um, and so that's in the fall. I strategically, because I went to book festivals, especially when I lived in New York, the Brooklyn Book Festival, the Harlem Book Festival, Queens had a book festival, Bronx. I've been to Boston Book Festival, all these things. I was like, we strategically placed, people don't think Connecticut is way, I don't know where, because, Connecticut and Rhode Island get, just because we between New York and Boston, get so overlooked a lot of time.
Right.
Right.
So, but I strategically plan to have our celebrations in between Boston and New York's celebrations. So with DiasporaCon is, I think, New York, then Boston, then us.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I like
And
that.
the book festival is the same. So I wanted this book festival to happen, and it's evolved. And it became, and when we added DiasporaCon and programming, longer programming, I was like, okay, we want to, and we showcase arts, all the arts, but emphasis on literary arts, right?
Hmm.
So it became culturally lit because it's lighting up the culture. It's enhancing everyone's awareness of the significance of the arts of the African diaspora. Want everybody to understand. Like, we got to understand each other's culture.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I had enough
Facts.
experiences in my life to know that part of what people don't know about they other people, because they don't know enough about them, then they find out we got similarities.
Right.
So let's learn about each other's culture. It's not anti anybody else. It's just I'm a black woman. I grew up African American woman in America. So this is my culture first.
Right.
So this is how we got to culturally lit.
Man. Whew. 2 minutes left for the program. I don't want it to end, but it has to end. We always give these last couple minutes to our guest, Ife. Please, any inspirational advice for someone who wants to go into your path, please give that. And this is the time for plugging social media. Anybody who wants to reach you, any events you got coming up, go right ahead and restate it. This time is yours.
Okay, so DiasporaCon is Sunday, April 27th, starting at 12 p.m. at Next Haven. DiasporaCon. Come, and our theme this year for our programming is radical and revolutionary reading.
Love it.
We are we're celebrating the 100th birthday of Medgar Evers and Malcolm X.
Wow.
Medgar Evers was an NAACP field officer that recruited people in deep Mississippi to vote when we couldn't vote. This is very significant in this midterm coming up year, that we want people to get up and vote. The people that didn't vote and the people that voted wrong,
Right.
that are learning their lessons right now. Radical revolutionary reading. And then and Malcolm X and his philosophy of humanity.
Mhm.
Malcolm X evolved. Everybody wants to think he's so radical. He was like, no, he evolved to a place of humanity.
Right.
Let's talk about each other. So it's radical revolutionary reading, and what we do is important because books are being banned, and we have to read diverse books.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Everybody should read everybody's stuff.
Yes.
and
Amen.
I'm really passionate about that. And advice I would give anyone is like, do what you're passionate about. I've known people that when I graduated from high school in 77, they went to work for the plantation in Yale, and they just retired or they are retiring, and they had to use all their sick. They have a lot of things. They worked,
Right.
you know. They did a lot of they had a wonderful job, had a wonderful salary. They have all the things, the beautiful homes, cars, did vacations, but they had to use all their sick time. Or they
Right.
have to take a whole bunch of medicine for a whole lot of things. And I ain't knocking that, because
Right.
some people need regimen in their
Right.
life. Then they retire and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Mm.
What am I going to do? You know, and there's everybody, find your chapter, however old you are. I started this at 60.
Mhm.
Why? Because there's days and I'm saying, what the hell did you do? What you thinking? What you thinking? But I love what I do. I love when we have programming and brings people together. Our book club, our monthly book club, every third Thursday of the month at Possible Futures, brings at least 20 to 30 people together
That's awesome.
to talk about different books. Like, and we did James Baldwin. Yes, I'm wearing James Baldwin today.
Yes, you are.
Nice.
Yes, you are. I know. I noticed that. I wasn't going to say
peeped
anything,
that
but I was
late,
like,
man.
that's so cool.
Oh man.
One of my favorite
cool.
writers, and it has he has an endless amount of lessons for everyone in his writing. But we've had intergenerational and multiracial conversations about a lot of his work and how relevant it is today. And this year with reading, we're reading Malcolm X and Medgar Evers, about Malcolm X and Medgar Evers, even though they're not writers.
Right.
But it's a lot to be learned about the lessons from the past. I believe in the Sankofa. Like, we got to look back to move forward, and we have to look back to see how people activated themselves without a whole bunch of performative social media
Right.
yapping, because people be talking, but they don't be walking.
No. See that a lot. You see that a lot. Well, and we definitely saw that a lot, with this past coming election, because there was a whole lot of talk about, the change that was happening with Kamala and how amazing it was going to be and all of this, and then.
And now people going, what? I didn't mean to not. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was going to do that. He telling you what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Definitely. He was very blunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all good things do come to an end. Ife, it's been amazing talking to you. This whole interview is rewind material, people. Just rewind material. Just go back and just listen and just learn and everything. Rewind material, this whole interview. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Myself, Preston, and my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. EZ BlueZ on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven. We appreciate everybody. Thank you so much.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know.